evening, as a matter of fact. Maintenant, on passe à la troisième présentation de M. David Corbeil, qui est président et cofondateur de Recharge Véhicules électriques. Alors, je vais vous donner un peu sa biographie ici. Alors, M. Corbeil, donc, en plus d'être président et cofondateur de cette entreprise-là, il est aussi chargé de projet pour l'Ilco électrique où il a géré plus de 1000 projets liés à la recharge électrique depuis 2013. Il est aussi formateur technique pour la Corporation des maîtres électriciens du Québec où il forme les électriciens pour l'installation, en vue de l'installation de bornes de recharge, en plus évidemment d'être membre du conseil d'administration de l'Association des véhicules électriques du Québec et évidemment Mobilité électrique Canada. Alors, M. Corbeil est ici pour nous parler de son entreprise qui a conçu une solution inédite pour faciliter l'accès aux propriétaires de condos à des bornes dans leur stationnement. Alors, je l'invite sur le podium.
Bonjour à tous. Donc, je vais faire ma présentation en français. En anglais, excusez-moi. Je vais seulement vous saluer en français aujourd'hui. Thank you, Michael and Matt, for the presentations. Matt, I saw your presentation about 2-3 hours ago in the email thread, so I had the time to include some things in there because I think we work in a really similar field. So, hi everyone. I'm going to share what we've learned at RVE over the last 5 years, experiencing firsthand how EV drivers living in multifamily building charge their cars at home or desperately try to charge their cars at home. I'm also going to share with you a secret formula that we've developed at RVE in order to enable every new building, so whether it's a new building for multifamily or existing building to retrofit to 100% EV ready. So it is widely known that it is the best option for any EV drivers to charge at home. And since most Canadians' population lives in single-family homes, home charging is, most of the time, fairly simple. A wire connects the chargers to the electrical panel, and that's it. Voila, ready to go. But for the rest of the Canadians living in multifamily buildings, the fastest growing housing market in Canada, it's a different story. In those buildings, getting access to charging in a dedicated spot is extremely difficult. It is difficult for various reasons, such as technical ones, economical ones, and legal ones. So why does so few stakeholders, apart toi, Matt, in the industry, but such as charger manufacturers, aren't trying to solve this puzzle? Well, what I do know is that RVE, we can address that issue affecting most of the new and existing multifamily buildings, but we cannot do it alone. We need more leadership from utilities and government programs to be put in place that will provide a neutral and objective technical support, along with regulation that will accelerate deployment of EV-ready infrastructure in multifamily buildings. So, how have we at RVE solved this nightmare? So just to specify a bit, this presentation is going to focus mainly on the multifamily market for small buildings and mid-sized buildings. So mainly for surroundings area around big cities. We're not going to focus on high-rises, and we're going to focus on homeowners that have dedicated parking spots, which we think represent about 80% of the Canadian markets. So my presentation will not cover high-rises buildings or shared parking, as we think that network and public charging is going to be the best solution moving forward and down the road. So back to small and mid-rise multifamily building with dedicated parking. So RVE developed a unique device that enables to plug any charger available on the market today to a tenant's electrical home infrastructure. So let me introduce you to the charge controller. The problem that we faced in a multifamily building is that the electrical panel of a unit is typically located in the unit itself. So if you live on the 6th floor, your panel is on the 6th floor. It is therefore not accessible from the parking. You couldn't pass a wire between your panel and where you want to charge your car. And furthermore, this panel is really limited in capacity and couldn't power at the same time all the appliances in the house and your car. What's interesting is that in multifamily buildings, every panel is connected to an electrical meter, which is usually downstairs in an electrical room. So this can picture a bit what Matt was referring to for multifamily building situations. Lots of gray boxes, as always green, and transformers that will take power coming from the utilities and feeding the individual panel of the unit. So our technology that we developed is installed in the electrical room on the feeder that link the meter of the panel to the unit. So from this device, it is possible to power the charger in the parking spot. So the red square that you can see on the screen represent a demand charge controller. This is not an EV charger. We spend most of our time explaining that we don't do EV charger. We do a solution that enables to plug EV charger to the most reliable source of power. So how does it work? The demand charge controller will take real-time measurement of the energy consumption in the unit, and if too much energy is consumed by the appliances, well, the charger will temporarily get de-energized at the charger level, and as soon as less power is drawn from all the appliances, so whether you're done cooking or using the dryer, then the charger will ultimately start charging again. So with energy management in place, the real benefit is that you will have technically no extra load that are added to the existing infrastructure, and this will save, at the end of the day, thousands of dollars in installation costs, and also provides automatic billing from electric consumption. So since the car is plugged to the dedicated meter of the unit, then the utility can bill the electricity directly. So here's some installation example of a charge controller. As you can see, we spend most of our R&D budget on design in order to make it as sexy and appealing as possible. So the demand charge controller can be either ceiling mount or wall mount, and is really flexible in terms of installation, which is key when you think at existing building having really limited space in the electrical room. So because of its flexibility and its equity, this solution has been adopted widely and in a quite short amount of time. So in the last 5 years, we've successfully integrated this solution in more than 500 complexes across Canada. We ran through a lot of homeowners association and convinced them that this was the best solution for them. So as you all know, we're only at the beginning of EV adoption, and what we see on the market today is that multifamily buildings are now starting to develop strategy in order to be able to be ready to deploy charger in their parking. So this solution allows them to meet the current and future demand for charger installation. But what about the past 6 months? There's a new car in the market that is really popular in Quebec, starts with a T and with a 3. It changed a lot of things for this market that is really the middle class market. When we look at the housing market and the value of those units, we're talking about the middle class most of the time, not all of the time. So in the past 6 months, we've assisted to a surprising shift in the way chargers are deployed in multi-unit buildings. Homeowners association are now shifting their views on EVs. Before, just getting approval for one charger installed was much more challenging, as now those same homeowners association call us to make their building fully EV ready. So instead of seeing charger get installed individually over time, we now see demand for projects that are deployed globally. So it's a big shift in the market and in the way that homeowner associations develop their project to build the right infrastructure in advance of the real demand when electric cars will be deployed. So I will now share actually a success story of a building in Montreal called the Événement, who deployed the charger globally, and that is now 100% EV ready. So that's a project we worked in partnership with Flow. So it's important for us to have a reliable charger manufacturer with who we can work with, and that's with who we did this great project. So the building based in Montreal is a 23 units building, 26 parking, and interesting fact, at the time of the project, only one electric vehicle in the building. So why the hell would they install fully electrified parking? Let's find out. So the first thing they did was to do a survey to all the co-owners to see the interest about what they think about electrifying all the parking spots. And then they looked for a solution, obviously. So the main concern that they got from that survey was that they wanted to make sure that their building would keep being competitive on the housing market, since new buildings are now including them in the construction. So that was a big concern that came from most of the people that even didn't really have an interest into EVs, but just in terms of investment, that made sense for them to electrify their parking spots. So that's a really big shift in the way people think about charging infrastructure for home. So given the fact that all their meters were accessible from the parking, they contacted us and chose the charge controller as the sole solution for the project. So what they did next was to call for proposals, since there was actually an engineer on the board of this building, and he was really key in the project. So he was the champion who would push the project around all the co-owners. So he really did a great choice and made sure that when the project would be presented to the board or the annual meeting, that people would feel like they had a choice. And I'll get back to this later. So they did a call for proposal, and the whole project came out to cost as little as $30,000 for electrifying the whole building. So it was a really reasonable cost, and I think that's part of the reason why the project went forward. So again, at the time of the vote, only one EV driver, and 92% of people were in favor of the project. So that was a really interesting statistic that we got shared. Then the project was executed. So we have some pictures of the project with your sexy box all around the electrical room, and also on adjacent walls, since the space in the electrical room was quite limited. And then from the room, you had to drop cables in order to power all parking spots. So I said before that every co-owner was presented with an option. So since most people didn't already own an EV, but that their main goal was to future-proof their parking, what they were offered was a 240-volt outlet, so that one day when they buy an EV, they're going to be able to put in a charger. So that option in all costs around $1,500 per unit, so really a reasonable cost. And then the one EV driver, which owned a Tesla, still own a Tesla, bought the charger, cost him around $3,000 for the whole installation, and can now charge his car. So I think it's a great picture of how the market is going to shift in the retrofit building to becoming fully EV ready. And obviously, it will start with the more high-end building, and then going into the low, more mid-range price, and so on. So I think covers the situation for the retrofit market, and I would like now to take a small step at how the new buildings are now also shifting in a similar holistic approach. So since last year, what we've seen on the market is that this market has also shifted from a more reactive approach to a proactive approach. So most people are buying a new condo, as you know, will live there for between 5 to 10 years. And in 5 to 10 years, those people will most probably own a PHEV or a fully electric vehicle. And I think the developers are now understanding that trend, and they understood that they can now, put EV-ready parking in place and sell them for a premium. So it's a big shift because as little as a year or two ago, developers wouldn't see added value in adding EV charger, as now they do. So I think there's a growing disparity on the market now between the non-EV ready building and the EV ready buildings. And the latter will be sold at a premium for sure, until most of the existing buildings are upgraded to accommodate electric vehicles. And that gap will probably continue to get larger and larger, profiting those that are thinking ahead. So I encourage all developers in the room to think about EV charger when you build your building. But how? How should developers think about developing their new construction when they plan for the delivery of the project in 2 to 3 years? What should they do now to be ready for the uncertain growth of EVs? And what's the most efficient way on a cost-effective or return on investment approach to do the right thing? So the first thing that we encourage is to focus on having a reliable source of power in place, as the wiring and the charging station can easily be installed later when needed. And we know that the recurrent issue in multi-unit building is always the electrical capacity that is often missing or almost inexistent, which makes the project much harder. So as stated before, the vast majority of residential units being built across Canada are located in low to mid-sized buildings. And we think that using charge controllers, the technology that we developed, it's now possible to make those new buildings 100% EV ready while requiring no additional capacity and guaranteeing a level 2 charging for every unit in this building, which is key to having a great charging experience. And this can be done for as low as about $1,000 per unit for every new unit built about. So in conclusion, so for us at RV, it seems clear that the charging needs for small and mid-sized multifamily buildings are clearly underserved at the moment, and we need more support from manufacturers, from utility, from government bodies, because right now there's really little support. So I hope people hear me in the room. We feel a bit alone in this industry, so come talk to us. If we don't act now or rapidly, we feel like that large gaps are going to be created between non-EV ready buildings and EV ready buildings in terms of resale value, of market attractiveness, and at the end of the day, it's going to penalize the accessibility for the middle class to own